1 second, you feel safe. And then,
The police are on their way.
well, you still do.
The notification light on my phone blinked blue at 2 in the morning. Another comment on Tessa's post. I rolled over in our king-size bed, listening to her gentle breathing beside me, and grabbed the device from my nightstand. Blessed with the perfect husband. 10 years of marriage, and he still brings me coffee every morning. 847 likes. 312 comments. Hearts and fire emojis cascading down the screen like digital confetti celebrating our supposedly perfect union. I screenshot the post before setting the phone back down. Something about the timing felt off. She'd posted it at 11:30, right after I'd gone to bed early with a headache. Tessa never posted that late unless she was up to something. My name is Rowan Carrick, and I'm 42 years old. I teach high school English in Portland, Maine, which means I spend my days trying to convince teenagers that Shakespeare matters while they scroll through social media. The irony wasn't lost on me as I lay there, staring at my wife's curated version of our life. The coffee comment was particularly rich. I hadn't brought Tessa coffee in months. She'd switched to some expensive green tea blend that cost more than my lunch budget. But the truth doesn't get likes. I couldn't fall back asleep. The house felt different somehow, like the air itself was holding secrets. Our colonial sat on Elm Street in one of Portland's nicer neighborhoods, the kind where everyone knew everyone else's business but pretended they didn't. Tessa loved that about this place, the performance of it all. At 6:30, my alarm buzzed. Tessa was already up, laptop open at the kitchen island, typing furiously. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a messy bun that probably took 20 minutes to achieve the perfect, effortless look. "Morning, perfect husband," she said without looking up, her voice carrying that particular tone wives use when they're annoyed about something you haven't figured out yet. I poured myself coffee from the pot she'd made, black, bitter, nothing like the careful morning ritual she'd described online. The mug read, "Sec 1 husband" in faded letters, a gift from our daughter Addie 3 Christmases ago, back when she still believed in the fairy tale we were selling. "Saw your post last night," I said, settling onto the stool across from her. 800 likes. That's got to be a record. Tessa's fingers paused over the keyboard for just a moment. People appreciate authenticity. Authenticity. The word tasted like copper pennies in my mouth. I watched her type, noticed how she angled the laptop screen away from me. In 10 years of marriage, she'd never been secretive about her social media. Tessa lived for the performance, usually wanted me to see every comment and like. "What are you working on?" I asked. "Just responding to messages. You know how it is." I didn't know, actually. My own social media presence consisted of a Facebook account I checked maybe twice a month and an Instagram with 12 followers, most of them former students who'd found me by accident. Addie stumbled into the kitchen at 7:15, 17 years old, and radiating the particular exhaustion that comes from staying up too late texting friends. She grabbed a granola bar from the pantry and kissed my cheek. "Dad, can you drive me to school? Mom's car is making that weird noise again." "Of course. Give me 5 minutes." Tessa looked up from her laptop for the first time since I'd entered the kitchen. "I can drive her. The car's fine." "It's not fine, Mom," Addie said, shifting her backpack on her shoulder. "It sounds like a wounded whale." "Don't be dramatic." But Addie was already heading for the door, and I was grabbing my keys. Some battles aren't worth fighting, especially when you're not sure what war you're actually in. The drive to Portland High took 12 minutes through tree-lined streets that looked like a postcard of New England charm. Addie was quiet until we hit the main road. "Mom's been weird lately," she said, staring out the passenger window. "Weird how?" "I don't know. Secretive. She's always on her phone, and yesterday I caught her talking to someone in the garage. When she saw me, she hung up real quick and pretended she was checking on the recycling." I filed that information away. Addie was observant, got that from me. She also had her mother's ability to read people, though she used it more honestly than Tessa did. "Probably just work stuff," I said, though Tessa's work as a wellness coach hardly seemed like it required clandestine garage conversations. "Maybe." Addie unbuckled her seatbelt as I pulled up to the school. "Dad, you know you can talk to me, right? If something's wrong?" The question caught me off guard. "Nothing's wrong, sweetheart. Just the usual married couple stuff." She gave me a look that was far too knowing for 17. "Okay, but I'm not a little kid anymore. I see things." After dropping her off, I drove to school thinking about what she'd said. I see things. What exactly was she seeing that I wasn't? My first period was American literature, 22 juniors who would rather be anywhere else. We were discussing The Great Gatsby, which felt appropriate given my current mood, all those beautiful surfaces hiding corruption underneath. Mr. Carrick, Jessica Martinez raised her hand. Why doesn't Nick just tell someone about what Gatsby's really doing? Like, why does he keep the secret? What do you think, Jessica? I think he's scared. Or maybe he doesn't want to admit he was wrong about someone. Smart kid. That's an interesting interpretation. Anyone else? The discussion continued, but my mind wandered. When had I stopped really looking at my own life? When had I become so comfortable with the surface that I'd stopped questioning what was underneath? During my planning period, I sat in my empty classroom grading essays about truth and deception in literature. The irony was suffocating. These kids could analyze fictional lies with surgical precision, but I couldn't see what was happening in my own house. My phone buzzed. A text from Tessa. Working late tonight, dinner with Melinda about the new wellness program, Don't Wait Up. Melinda Chen was Tessa's business partner, though I'd never been clear on what exactly their wellness coaching business entailed. They'd been friends since college, and Melinda had the particular kind of aggressive positivity that made my teeth ache. Another text, this one from my best friend Nate. Drinks tonight? Haven't seen you in weeks. I started to decline. Tessa hated when I went to O'Malley's, said it was beneath me, then stopped. Why shouldn't I have a drink with my friend? Especially if she was going to be out anyway. Sure. 8 o'clock? Perfect. I've got some things to tell you. The rest of the day passed in a blur of classes and grading. By the time I got home at 4:30, the house was empty. Tessa's car was gone and there was no note. Our 14-year-old son Jonah was at robotics club until 6, and Addie had drama practice. For the first time in months, I was alone in my own house. I made myself a sandwich and wandered into Tessa's home office, a converted bedroom where she filmed her wellness videos and managed her social media empire. Her laptop was closed on the desk, power cord snaking across the hardwood floor. I wasn't snooping. Not exactly. I was just looking. The desk was meticulously organized. Color-coded files, expensive pens in a marble holder, a ring light for her video calls. Everything perfectly arranged for maximum visual impact. Even her private space was a performance. I was about to leave when I noticed the laptop wasn't completely closed. A sliver of screen showed, and I could see the edge of what looked like a message notification. I shouldn't have looked. In a healthy marriage, you don't raid your spouse's private messages. But something about the morning's conversation, about Addie's observations, about the way Tessa had angled her screen away from me, made me pause. I lifted the laptop lid. The screen was still logged in to Facebook Messenger. The conversation thread was open, and the name at the top made my stomach clench. Zane Marinor. Zane worked at the marketing firm that handled some of Tessa's wellness brand partnerships. I'd met him twice, once at a company holiday party, and once when he'd stopped by the house to drop off contracts. Tall, artificially tan, with the kind of aggressive friendliness that immediately put me on edge. The most recent message was from 3 hours ago. Zane. Can't wait to see you tonight. This sneaking around is getting old. Tessa. I know, but we have to be careful. Rowan's been suspicious lately. Zane. When are you going to tell him? Tessa. Soon. I just need to get everything in place first. My hands were shaking as I scrolled up through the conversation. Weeks of messages. Months, actually. The timestamps went back to January, and it was now October, January 15th. Tessa. Dinner was amazing. I forgot what it felt like to be with someone who actually listens to me. Zane. Your husband doesn't appreciate what he has. Tessa. Rowan's a good man, but he's safe. Boring. I feel like I'm suffocating. January 22nd. Tessa. I keep thinking about what you said, about taking risks. Zane. Life's too short to settle for comfortable. Tessa. I married him when I was 29. I thought I wanted stability. Now I feel like I'm disappearing. February 3rd. Tessa. I told Melinda about us. She thinks I'm crazy, but she understands. Zane. What did she say? Tessa. That I deserve to be happy. That staying in a marriage just for the kids isn't fair to anyone. The kids. My chest felt tight. I kept scrolling, watching my marriage dissolve in real time through messages I was never supposed to see. March 12th. Zane. I love you. Tessa. I love you too. This is so complicated. Zane. It doesn't have to be. We could be together. Really together. Tessa. I know. I'm working on it. April 8th. Tessa. Rowan brought me coffee this morning, and I felt so guilty I could barely look at him. Zane. Guilt is just fear in disguise. Tessa. Easy for you to say. You're not the one lying to your family every day. Zane. Then stop lying. Tell him the truth. Tessa, I will, when the time is right. The time is right. I thought about her post from last night, about the perfect husband bringing her coffee every morning. The same coffee that made her feel guilty because she was planning to leave me for another man. I kept reading, my sandwich forgotten on the desk beside me. May 20th. Tessa. He's trying so hard lately. Planning date nights, bringing me flowers. It's like he knows something's wrong. Zane. Maybe he does. Tessa. No. Rowan's oblivious. He sees what he wants to see. Oblivious. The word stung more than I expected. Was I oblivious? Or had I just been choosing not to see what was right in front of me? June 2nd. Tessa. I can't keep doing this. The sneaking around, the lies, it's eating me alive. Zane. So let's stop sneaking. Let's be together for real. Tessa. You make it sound so simple. Zane. It is simple. You're just making it complicated. July 15th. Tessa. Addie asked me yesterday if I was happy. A 17-year-old shouldn't have to worry about her mother's happiness. Zane. She'll understand eventually. Kids are more resilient than you think. Tessa. I hope so. I don't want to hurt them. But she was going to hurt them anyway. That was the part that made my hands shake as I continued scrolling. She was going to blow up our family, destroy our kids' sense of security, and she was convincing herself it was somehow noble. August 3rd. Tessa. I've been thinking about timing. Maybe after the kids start school in the fall. Zane. That's still weeks away, Tessa. I know, but I want to minimize the damage. Do this as cleanly as possible. Cleanly. As if there was a clean way to detonate a marriage. September 10th. Tessa. Rowan's been talking about our anniversary next month. He wants to plan something special. Zane. Jesus, that's twisted. Tessa. I know. I feel like such a fraud. Zane. Then end it. Rip off the Band-Aid. Tessa. After the anniversary. I can't ruin that for him, too. Our anniversary was next week. October 18th. 11 years of marriage, and she was planning to end it right after we celebrated. The final messages were from this morning, after I'd left for work. Tessa. He saw my post last night. Made a comment about the likes. Zane. You're being paranoid. Tessa. Maybe. But I think I should be more careful with my phone. Zane. Or you could just tell him the truth. Tessa. Soon, I promise. This is almost over. This is almost over. Our marriage, our family, our life together, almost over, and I was apparently the last to know. I sat back in her desk chair, staring at the screen. 10 months of deception. 10 months of planning my replacement while posting about what a perfect husband I was. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. My phone buzzed. A text from Tessa. Dinner's running long. Probably won't be home until after 10. Dinner with Melinda. Except I'd just read that Melinda knew about the affair, had been encouraging it. So either this dinner was about planning Tessa's exit strategy, or it wasn't dinner at all. I looked at the time. 6:15. I had almost 4 hours before she came home. I started taking screenshots. Every message, every photo, every casual reference to our marriage as something she was trapped in. I documented it all, my teacher's instinct for thorough research kicking in. If this was going to end, and clearly it was, I wanted the complete picture. The screenshots painted a story I barely recognized. In Tessa's version, I was the anchor dragging her down, the safe choice she'd made when she was too young to know better. According to her messages, I was boring, predictable, and completely unaware of her unhappiness. Some of that might have been true, but I wasn't oblivious anymore. Jonah came home at 6:30, dropped his backpack by the front door, and headed straight for the kitchen. At 14, he was all limbs and appetite, constantly growing out of clothes and eating everything in sight. "Where's Mom?" he asked, constructing what appeared to be a sandwich with structural engineering principles. "Dinner with Melinda. How is robotics?" "Good. We're working on autonomous navigation. Mr. Peterson thinks we might actually win regionals this year." He took a massive bite of his creation. "Are you okay? You look weird." "Just tired. Long day." Jonah studied me with the particular intensity he usually reserved for mechanical problems. Like his sister, he was observant. Unlike Addie, he tended to keep his observations to himself. "Okay," he said finally. "I've got homework." He disappeared upstairs, leaving me alone with my thoughts and a laptop full of evidence that my marriage was a lie. I closed the computer and went to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of wine, and tried to process what I'd learned. The rationale part of my mind, the part that had spent 20 years teaching teenagers about plot structure and character motivation, knew the story could only end one way. But the husband part, the father part, the man who'd spent 11 years believing in something that apparently hadn't been real for months, that part was still catching up. Addie got home at 7:30, full of energy from drama practice. She was playing Emily in Our Town, and the irony of that wasn't lost on me. A play about appreciating life while you're living it, about seeing the beauty in ordinary moments before they're gone. "Dad, can you run lines with me?" she asked, dropping her script on the kitchen counter. "Of course." We spent 45 minutes going through Act 3, the cemetery scene where Emily realizes she can't bear to watch her life again because it's too painful to see how much everyone missed while they were living it. "Do any human beings ever realize life while they live it, every minute?" Addie read. "The saints and poets, maybe they do some," I responded, reading the stage manager's lines. "I'm ready to go back." Emily's final words, giving up on reliving her life because the weight of unnoticed love was too much to bear. We finished the scene in silence. Addie closed her script and looked at me with those two knowing eyes. "That play's depressing," she said. "But true." "Yeah, that's what makes it depressing." She gathered her things and headed upstairs to finish homework. I sat at the kitchen table, thinking about saints and poets and the ordinary moments we miss while we're living them. At 8 o'clock, I drove to O'Malley's. Nate Murphy had owned the bar for 15 years, ever since he'd gotten out of the Navy and decided Portland needed a place where you could get a decent burger and watch the game without having to take out a loan. It wasn't fancy, but it was honest. Scarred wooden tables, local beer on tap, and a bartender who remembered your name. Nate was behind the bar when I walked in, polishing glasses with the methodical precision of someone who'd done it thousands of times. He looked up and grinned. "Rowan, about time. I was starting to think Tessa had you under house arrest." "Just busy with school stuff." "Right. The usual?" I nodded, and he poured me a pint of Shipyard. The bar was about half full, a typical Tuesday night crowd of regulars and a few couples on dates. Normal people living normal lives, probably not discovering their marriages were elaborate lies. "So," Nate said, leaning against the bar, "I've got news. Good news or bad news? Depends on your perspective." He glanced around, then lowered his voice. "I saw Tessa last week. Here, actually." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "Here? Tessa doesn't drink." She wasn't drinking. She was with some guy. Tall, tan, looked like he belonged in a protein powder commercial. "Zane." "When was this?" "Thursday night, around 9. They were in the back booth, having what looked like a pretty intense conversation. I wouldn't have thought much of it, except..." He paused, clearly uncomfortable. "Except what?" "They were holding hands, Rowan. And when they left, he had his arm around her." I took a long drink of beer, buying time to process this. Thursday night, Tessa had said she was at a wellness seminar in South Portland. Another lie in a growing collection. "You sure it was her?" "Positive. I've known Tessa for 8 years, since you guys moved here. It was definitely her." Nate had been my friend since my second week in Portland. We'd met at a faculty mixer. He'd been dating one of the math teachers at the time, and discovered we both loved baseball and terrible action movies. He was straightforward in a way that reminded me of the military guys I'd known growing up, and he had no patience for drama or deception. "There's more," he said. I asked around, discreetly. Turns out they've been meeting here pretty regularly. Always the same booth, always the same routine, intense conversation, physical contact, leaving together. "How regularly?" "Once a week, maybe more, going back months." Months. I thought about the messages I'd read, the careful planning, the elaborate deception. It wasn't just an emotional affair. They'd been conducting a relationship right here in my town, in front of people I knew. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Nate's face was grim. "Would you have believed me? Or would you have told me I was seeing things?" He was right, and we both knew it. 3 days ago, if someone had told me Tessa was having an affair, I would have laughed. I would have explained how solid our marriage was, how much she loved our family, how she'd never do something like that. "I'm sorry, man," Nate said. "I kept hoping I was wrong." "You weren't wrong." I told him about the laptop, about the messages, about the anniversary dinner she was planning to sit through before ending our marriage. Nate listened without interrupting, his expression getting darker with each detail. "What are you going to do?" he asked when I finished. "I don't know yet. You could confront her tonight, when she gets home from her fake dinner. And then what? She apologizes, promises to end it, and we go to counseling? Try to rebuild trust?" I shook my head. 10 months, Nate. This isn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. This is a whole other life she's been living. So you're thinking divorce? I'm thinking I need more information before I make any decisions. That was true, but not complete. What I was really thinking was that I needed to understand the full scope of what she'd done before I decided how to respond. The teacher in me wanted to see all the evidence before drawing conclusions. The husband in me wanted to make sure she couldn't do this to anyone else. We talked for another hour, mostly about safe topics: the Red Sox's disappointing season, Jonah's robotics team, Addie's college applications. Normal friend conversation that felt surreal given what I'd learned. I got home at 10:15. Tessa's car was in the driveway, and the lights were on in our bedroom. I sat in my own driveway for 5 minutes, trying to prepare myself for the performance I was about to witness. She was in bed when I came upstairs, reading something on her phone. She looked up and smiled, the same smile she'd been giving me for 11 years, warm and genuine and completely fake. "How was your evening?" she asked. "Good. Nate says hello." "That's nice. How's he doing?" "Fine. Same old Nate." I started getting ready for bed, trying to keep my voice casual. "How was dinner?" "Oh, you know Melinda. She had a million ideas for the new wellness program. We talked for hours." Every word was a lie, delivered with the same ease she used to tell me she loved me. I wondered how long she'd been this good at deception, or if it was a skill she'd developed specifically for this situation. "Sounds productive." "Very. I think this new direction is going to be really good for the business." New direction. I thought about her messages to Zane, about the timeline she'd laid out, about the anniversary dinner that was supposed to be her farewell performance. "I'm excited to hear about it," I said, and meant it in a way she couldn't possibly understand. We went to sleep in the same bed, like we had thousands of times before. But everything was different now. I lay awake listening to her breathe, wondering how many other nights she'd fallen asleep next to me while planning her escape. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. Wednesday morning felt like the first day of a new life, even though nothing had visibly changed. Tessa made coffee, I read the news on my phone, Addie rushed through breakfast complaining about a history test she'd forgotten to study for. The same domestic routine we'd performed hundreds of times, except now I knew it was ending. What I didn't know was exactly how much damage Tessa and Zane had already done. During my lunch break, I drove to the Portland Public Library and found a quiet corner with a computer. I'd left my phone at school, too easy to trace, and I wasn't ready for anyone to know what I was investigating. Zane Marinor had a significant online presence. His LinkedIn showed he was a senior account manager at Pinnacle Marketing, the firm that handled several of Tessa's brand partnerships. His Instagram was a carefully curated collection of workout videos, motivational quotes, and photos from expensive restaurants. More interesting was what I found when I dug deeper. Public records showed he'd filed for bankruptcy 3 years ago. His ex-wife had a restraining order against him that had expired 18 months ago. The Portland Press-Herald's business section had a brief mention of him in an article about marketing executives who'd been fired for ethical violations, something about inflated billing and client complaints. This was the man my wife was planning to leave me for. A broke, potentially dangerous charlatan with a history of legal problems. I spent an hour building a profile, taking notes in a composition notebook I'd bought at the library gift shop. Old habits from my college research days, sometimes handwritten notes were safer than digital trails. After school, I stopped by Pinnacle Marketing's office building downtown. I didn't go in, just sat in my car across the street and watched. At 5:30, Zane emerged with a woman I didn't recognize. Tall, blonde, wearing the kind of expensive athletic wear that cost more than my monthly car payment. Not Tessa, someone else. I followed them at a distance to a wine bar in the Old Port. They chose a table by the window, and I could see them clearly from my position across the street. The body language was familiar. Leaning across the table, touching hands, the kind of intimate conversation that wasn't about business. I took photos with my phone's zoom function. Not great quality, but clear enough to show Zane in what appeared to be a romantic situation with someone who wasn't my wife. Interesting. I drove home with more questions than answers. Was Tessa the only one Zane was manipulating, or was he running multiple relationships simultaneously? That evening, Tessa announced she had another business dinner on Friday. "With Melinda again?" I asked. "No, this one's with potential investors. Zane set it up. He thinks we're ready to expand the wellness coaching into corporate consulting." "Zane, of course." "That sounds exciting." "It could be huge for us. Life-changing, really." Life-changing. I wondered if she heard the double meaning in her own words. Thursday passed in a blur of classes and planning. I was teaching The Crucible to my sophomore honors class, and the themes of truth, Reputation and public shame felt uncomfortably relevant. "Why doesn't John Proctor just confess?" asked Emma Walsh, one of my brightest students. "He could save his life." "What would he be giving up?" I asked. "His integrity, his name." "And why does that matter more than his life?" The class discussed it for 20 minutes. The value of reputation, the cost of living with a lie, the way truth has a weight that fiction can't carry. These kids understood concepts that apparently escaped my 42-year-old wife. Friday evening, I told Tessa I was going to grade papers at school. Instead, I drove to the Harbor View restaurant, where her investor dinner was supposedly taking place. She wasn't there. I checked 3 other upscale restaurants in the area. No sign of her or Zane. Finally, I drove to his apartment complex. I'd found his address in the public records search. His car was there. So was Tessa's. I parked across the street and waited. At 9:45, they emerged together. Tessa's hair was messed up, her lipstick gone. She looked relaxed and happy in a way I hadn't seen in months. They kissed goodbye in the parking lot. Not a quick, guilty peck, but the kind of kiss you give someone when you're planning a future together. I drove home and was reading in bed when she got back at 10:30. "How was the dinner?" I asked. "Promising, really promising. I think we're going to get the funding." She went to the bathroom to wash off her lies, and I lay there thinking about John Proctor and the weight of truth. Saturday was our anniversary. Tessa woke up early and made pancakes. My favorite, though she usually complained about the mess. She'd bought me a card with a photo of us from our wedding day, looking impossibly young and genuinely happy. 11 years, she said, kissing my cheek as she handed me the card. "Can you believe it? Sometimes it feels like yesterday, sometimes it feels like a lifetime." She paused, coffee mug halfway to her lips. "What do you mean?" "Just that we've changed so much. Both of us. We're not the same people who got married in that little church in Bar Harbor." "No," she said quietly. "I guess we're not." For a moment, I thought she might tell me the truth. Her face had that look people get when they're about to confess something important. But then Addie came downstairs, and the moment passed. We spent the day as a family, apple picking at a farm outside the city, dinner at the Italian place where we'd had our first date. Tessa posted photos throughout the day, happy family moments, loving couple shots, the performance of a perfect marriage. That night, she posted a long caption with our dinner photo. 11 years with this incredible man. He still makes me laugh every day, still supports my dreams, still loves me even when I'm difficult. Here's to many more years of growing together. Anniversary, faux blessed voir soulmate. I screenshot it before going to sleep. Sunday morning, I made my decision. While Tessa was at her yoga class, I sat down with both kids. Addie was working on college applications, and Jonah was building something complicated with Lego blocks. "I need to talk to you both about something," I said. They looked up, immediately alert. Kids know when serious conversations are coming. "Is everything okay?" Addie asked. "I'm not sure yet, but I want you to know that whatever happens between your mom and me, it has nothing to do with you. You're both incredible kids, and we love you more than anything." "Are you getting divorced?" Jonah's question was matter-of-fact, like he was asking about the weather. "I don't know. Maybe. Probably." Addie's eyes filled with tears. "Because of what I said? About Mom being weird?" "No, sweetheart. This has been building for a long time. You didn't cause anything." "Is Mom having an affair?" Jonah again, still in that calm, analytical tone. I hesitated. They deserved honesty, but they were still kids. "Your mom has been unhappy for a while. She's been talking to someone about options." "Zane," Addie said. "The guy from her work. I've seen his name on her phone." Smart kid. Too smart. "How long have you known?" "I didn't know for sure, but I suspected. She's been different when he calls. Happier, but also guilty looking." We talked for an hour. They asked hard questions, and I gave them honest answers without unnecessary details. They were hurt, angry, confused, all the emotions I was feeling compressed into teenage hearts that weren't ready for this kind of pain. "What are you going to do?" Addie asked. "I'm going to talk to your mom tonight after you guys go to bed." "And then?" "Then we'll figure out what comes next." That evening, Tessa was in her office, video chatting with someone about a new wellness program. I could hear her laughing through the closed door, the sound bright and genuine. She was happy, probably talking to Zane about their plans for after she left me. At 10 o'clock, I knocked on her door. "Come in," she called. She was closing her laptop as I entered, and I caught a glimpse of Zane's face on the screen before it went dark. "Working late?" I asked. Just finalizing some details for next week. She stretched, arching her back. What's up? I sat down in the chair across from her desk. We need to talk. Something in my tone made her straighten up. About what? About your relationship with Zane Marinor. The color drained from her face. For a moment, she looked like she might deny it, but then her shoulders sagged. How long have you known? She asked. Does it matter? I guess not. She was quiet for a long moment. I never meant for this to happen. But it did happen. For months. Yes. And you were planning to leave, after pretending to celebrate our anniversary. She flinched. It wasn't pretending. Yesterday was, I do love you, Rowan. I'll always love you. Just not enough to stay married to me. It's not that simple. It seems pretty simple. You met someone else, decided you wanted a different life, and made plans to get it. The only complicated part was lying to me and the kids while you figured out the logistics. Tessa started crying. Not the dramatic sobs of someone caught in wrongdoing, but the quiet tears of genuine sadness. I know how this looks. I know I've handled everything wrong, but I've been miserable, Rowan, for years. Then you should have talked to me. We could have tried counseling or separation or any number of things that didn't involve deception and betrayal. Would you have listened? Really? Or would you have tried to fix me like you fix everything else? The question stung because there was truth in it. I did try to fix things. It was my nature, probably part of what made me a good teacher and a frustrating husband. I guess we'll never know, I said. We talked until almost midnight. She told me about feeling trapped, about losing herself in the routine of marriage and motherhood, about meeting Zane and remembering what it felt like to be seen as interesting and desirable. I told her about the screenshots, about following her, about the kids' questions and fears. It was the most honest conversation we'd had in years, which made it even more tragic that it was happening too late to save anything. What happens now? She asked. Now you move out. This week? Rowan, you've been planning to leave anyway. The only difference is the timing. What about the kids? They'll stay here. You can see them whenever you want, but their home is here. She nodded, accepting what we both knew was fair. And financially? We'll figure it out. But Tessa, if you try to take anything that belongs to the kids, or if you try to turn them against me, I will make your life very difficult. I would never. You've been lying to all of us for months. Your word doesn't carry much weight right now. She flinched again, but didn't argue. The next morning, while I was at school, she packed her things and left. No drama, no final confrontation, just an empty closet and a note on the kitchen counter saying she was sorry and would call the kids that evening. I came home to a house that felt different. Not empty exactly, but honest in a way it hadn't been in months. Addie and Jonah took the news better than I'd expected. They were sad, but not surprised. Kids are resilient, and they'd been preparing for this possibility longer than I had. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table with a glass of wine and thought about what came next. The divorce would be straightforward. Maine was a no-fault state, and we didn't have enough assets to fight over. Tessa could have her new life with Zane, and I could figure out what mine looked like without her. But first, I had one more thing to do. I opened my laptop and logged into Facebook. I stared at the blank status update box for 10 minutes before I started typing. The cursor blinked like a heartbeat, waiting for me to decide how much truth the world was ready to handle. Tessa's anniversary post was still up, still collecting likes and heart emojis from people who believed in the fairy tale she'd been selling, 342 comments about relationship goals and perfect marriages and how lucky she was to have found her soulmate. I opened the screenshots folder on my phone. Months of evidence, carefully documented and organized. Her public declarations of love side by side with her private plans for escape. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. My finger hovered over the Create Post button. This wasn't about revenge, I told myself. This was about truth. About refusing to let her control the narrative while she rewrote our history to make herself the victim of a loveless marriage. I uploaded 2 images side by side. On the left, her anniversary post from Saturday. The photo of us at dinner, her caption about growing together and many more years of love. On the right, a screenshot of her message to Zane from Sunday morning. 1 more week, and this will all be over. I can't wait to start our real life together. The caption was simple. Which one is the truth? I hit post at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night. My phone started buzzing immediately. The first comment came from my sister-in-law, Tessa's younger sister, Beth. What is this supposed to mean? Then my neighbor, Carol. Is everything okay? Then Nate. Holy shit, man. Then Tessa's mother. Rowan, please call me. I turned off the notifications and went to bed. By morning, the post had been shared 47 times and had over 200 comments. The story was writing itself in real time as friends, family, and acquaintances tried to make sense of what they were seeing. Tessa's friends were defending her. There's always two sides to every story. Marriage is complicated. This is a private matter. My friends were more direct. I'm sorry you're going through this. She never deserved you. You're better off without her. Strangers were weighing in with their own experiences. My ex did the same thing. Social media marriages are always fake. Good for you for exposing the truth. The most interesting comments came from people who knew both of us in real life. Neighbors who'd watched us walk our dog every morning, colleagues who'd attended our barbecues, parents of our kids' friends who'd seen us at school events. They were connecting dots, remembering moments that made more sense now. I always wondered why she seemed so unhappy at the block party last month. She was definitely acting strange at parent-teacher conferences. My daughter said Addie mentioned her mom was going through something. I got to school early and checked my email. 3 messages from Tessa, each more frantic than the last. What have you done? Take that post down immediately. You're humiliating our children. This is cruel and unnecessary. I'm calling my lawyer. You can't share private messages without my consent. Actually, I could. Maine was a one-party consent state for recording conversations, and there was no expectation of privacy for messages sent over Facebook's servers. I'd done my research. More interesting was what she hadn't said. No denial, no claim that the messages were taken out of context, no attempt to explain her behavior, just anger at being exposed. My first period class was buzzing with whispered conversations that stopped when I entered the room. Word travels fast in a small city, especially when it involves a teacher's personal drama. Mr. Carrick, Jessica Martinez raised her hand. Are you okay? I'm fine, Jessica. Thank you for asking. Now let's talk about Act 4 of The Crucible. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. We spent 50 minutes discussing John Proctor's choice to tell the truth rather than live with a lie, even though it cost him everything. During lunch, I got a call from an unknown number. Mr. Carrick, this is Alyssa Marinor, Zane's wife. I nearly dropped my phone. Oh, hello? I saw your post. I think we should talk. We met at a coffee shop downtown during my planning period. Alyssa was nothing like I'd expected, mid-30s, professional, with the kind of tired eyes that suggested she'd been dealing with Zane's behavior for a long time. How long have you known? She asked after we'd ordered. About a week. You? Officially, since this morning when I saw your post. Unofficially, I've suspected for months. Zane's been different, secretive, working late, taking mysterious phone calls, spending money we don't have. I'm sorry. This can't be easy. Actually, it's a relief. I've been going crazy thinking I was paranoid. She stirred her coffee absently. Can I ask you something? Do you know if there are others? Others? Other women. I found some things on his phone that suggest your wife might not be the only one. I thought about the blonde woman I'd seen him with at the wine bar. Maybe I saw him with someone else last week. Can you describe her? I did, and Alyssa's face fell. That's probably Jennifer from his office. I thought that was over. We talked for an hour. Alyssa painted a picture of a man who was charming and manipulative, who used his good looks and marketing skills to run elaborate emotional cons on vulnerable women. Tessa wasn't his first affair, and she probably wouldn't be his last. He's broke, Alyssa said. Has been for years. The bankruptcy was just the legal part. He's been living on credit cards and borrowed money since then. I think he targets women who can support his lifestyle. Tessa doesn't have that kind of money. No, but she has a house, a business, a stable life, and she's married to a teacher with a steady income and good benefits. The pieces were falling into place. Zane wasn't just stealing my wife. He was positioning himself to take over my entire life. What are you going to do? I asked. File for divorce. Today, probably. I've been putting it off, hoping he'd change, but your post made me realize I'm just enabling him. I'm sorry if I forced your hand. Don't be. You did me a favor. That evening, Tessa called while I was making dinner with the kids. We need to talk, she said without preamble. We talked Sunday night. I thought we covered everything. Not about us. About that post. You need to take it down. Why? Because it's destroying my reputation, my business, my relationships with my family. Your affair already did that. I just made it visible. Rowan, please. I know you're angry, but this is affecting more than just me. People are saying terrible things about Addie and Jonah. That got my attention. What kind of things? That they must have known, that we're a dysfunctional family, that they're probably damaged from living in a house full of lies. I felt a surge of protective anger. Give me examples. Mrs. Henderson from down the street asked Addie if she was okay and if she needed someone to talk to, like she's some kind of victim. She is a victim, Tessa. We all are. And posting our private business on social media is helping how, exactly? It was a fair question. I'd been so focused on exposing her lies that I hadn't fully considered the impact on our children. I'll think about it, I said. Thank you. But I didn't take the post down. Instead, I added a comment. To be clear, my children are strong, resilient, and surrounded by people who love them. They're handling this situation with more grace than most adults would. I'm proud of them, and they have nothing to be ashamed of. The response was immediate and supportive. Friends and neighbors rallied around Addie and Jonah, offering playdates and study sessions and the kind of community support that makes small cities special. Wednesday brought a new development. Tessa's business partner, Melinda, called me at school. Rowan, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Okay. Did you know I wasn't really having dinner with Tessa those nights she said she was with me? I suspected. She's been using me as an alibi for months. I thought she was going through something and needed space, so I covered for her. I didn't know she was... Melinda's voice trailed off. Having an affair. Yes. And now our business is falling apart because people think I was helping her deceive you. Were you? Not intentionally, but I see how it looks. Melinda was collateral damage, another relationship destroyed by Tessa's web of lies. I felt sorry for her, but there wasn't much I could do to help. Thursday brought the news I'd been expecting. Tessa had moved in with Zane. Addie told me, having heard it from a friend whose mother worked at Pinnacle Marketing. The story was already spreading through Portland's interconnected social networks. Are you okay? I asked her. I guess. It's weird, thinking about Mom living with some guy we barely know. It's okay to be angry about this. I am angry, but I'm also sad and confused. Like, if she was so unhappy, why didn't she just tell us? Why did she have to sneak around and lie? These were questions I couldn't answer because I didn't understand Tessa's choices any better than Addie did. Friday afternoon, I got a call from Pinnacle Marketing's HR department. Mr. Carrick, this is Sandra Walsh from Pinnacle Marketing. I'm calling about the situation involving our employee Zane Marinor. What about it? We've received some complaints from clients about Mr. Marinor's personal conduct affecting his professional relationships. Given the public nature of recent events, we're conducting an internal review. Translation: Zane's affair was bad for business, and they were looking for reasons to fire him. I'm not sure how I can help you. We understand you have documentation of communications between Mr. Marinor and your wife. Would you be willing to share relevant portions for our investigation? I thought about it. Zane had used his professional relationship with Tessa to begin their affair. He'd been conducting personal business on company time, meeting her at restaurants and hotels when he was supposed to be working. If Pinnacle wanted to fire him for that, I wasn't going to stand in their way. I'll email you what I have, I said. By Monday morning, both Zane and Tessa had been terminated from their positions at Pinnacle Marketing. The official reason was conduct detrimental to client relationships, but everyone knew what that meant. Tessa called me that evening, crying. They fired me, Rowan. Both of us. I've lost everything. You made your choices. I know, but I didn't think... I never meant for it to go this far. What did you think would happen? That you could blow up our family and your career would be fine? I thought people would understand, that they'd see I was just trying to be happy. At everyone else's expense. She was quiet for a long moment. I know you hate me right now. I don't hate you, Tessa. I'm disappointed in you. There's a difference. Is there any chance? Could we try to work this out? Go to counseling? Start over? No. Why not? Because I don't trust you anymore, and because you're living with another man. I could leave him? You should leave him, but not for me. For you. Because he's using you, and you're too caught up in the fantasy to see it. What do you mean? I told her what Alyssa had shared about Zane's financial situation, his history of affairs, his pattern of targeting women who could support his lifestyle. I could hear her processing the information, connecting dots she'd been too infatuated to see. You're just trying to turn me against him. I'm trying to protect you from making an even bigger mistake, but you're an adult, and you'll figure it out eventually. We hung up, and I felt something I hadn't expected. Pity. Tessa had traded a stable, loving marriage for a relationship with a man who saw her as a meal ticket. She'd destroyed her reputation, her career, and her relationship with her children for someone who was probably already planning his next exit strategy. The irony was perfect, and perfectly sad. 3 weeks after my Facebook post, Tessa's carefully constructed world had completely collapsed. Her wellness coaching business was gone, her social media followers had dwindled from 8,000 to fewer than 300, and her family relationships were strained to the breaking point. But the real revelation came on a Thursday evening when Alyssa Marinor called me with news that changed everything. "Rowan, I need to see you. Tonight, if possible. I found something you need to know about." We met at the same coffee shop, but this time Alyssa brought a laptop bag and a folder thick with documents. "I've been going through Zane's things," she said, "preparing for the divorce, and I found something that's going to shock you." She opened her laptop and showed me a series of emails between Zane and someone named Marcus Webb. "Who's Marcus Webb?" I asked. "A private investigator. Zane hired him 6 months ago." The emails made my stomach turn. Zane had commissioned a full background investigation on me. Financial records, employment history, health information, even details about my military service 20 years ago. "He was planning this," Alyssa said. "The whole thing. He researched you before he ever made a move on Tessa." I scrolled through the investigator's report. It was thorough and invasive. My salary, my pension contributions, the value of our house, even details about my parents' estate that I'd inherited 5 years ago. "There's more," Alyssa said, opening the folder. "Financial documents. Zane's been planning to divorce me and marry Tessa, then push for a quick divorce from you with maximum alimony." The documents laid out a strategy that was both brilliant and sociopathic. Zane would establish a relationship with Tessa, encourage her to leave me, then position himself as her financial advisor during the divorce proceedings. Once they were married, he'd have access to whatever assets she gained from our split, plus her ongoing business income. "He's done this before," Alyssa said quietly. "I found records of 2 other women over the past 5 years. Same pattern, target married women with assets, convince them to leave their husbands, then disappear once the money runs out." "Why are you showing me this?" "Because Tessa deserves to know what she's gotten herself into, and because I think you can stop him." "How?" "By exposing him the same way you exposed her. But bigger. Public. Make it impossible for him to run this scam on anyone else." I studied the documents. If this information became public, it wouldn't just destroy Zane's relationship with Tessa, it would end his career and possibly land him in legal trouble. "What about Tessa?" I asked. "This will humiliate her even more than she already has been." "She made her choice. But the next woman he targets won't have that option if we don't stop him now." Alyssa was right. This wasn't just about my marriage anymore. It was about preventing Zane from destroying other families. "I need to think about this," I said. "Don't think too long. I'm filing for divorce next week, and once that becomes public, he'll know I found his files. He might disappear." That night, I called my brother-in-law, David, who was a lawyer in Boston. I explained the situation and emailed him the documents Alyssa had shared. "This is fraud," he said after reviewing everything. "Possibly racketeering, depending on how the prosecutor wants to charge it. You need to take this to the police." "What about Tessa? What about her? She's a victim too, even if she doesn't know it yet." Friday morning, I drove to the Portland Police Department and met with Detective Sarah Morrison, who specialized in financial crimes. She reviewed the evidence with the kind of professional detachment that made me realize how serious this was. "Mr. Carrick, what you're describing is a sophisticated long-term fraud scheme. If these documents are authentic, Mr. Marinor could be facing significant criminal charges." "What happens next?" "We'll need to verify the documents, interview the victims, and build a case. It could take months." "What about my wife? She's living with him." "We can't force her to leave, but we can warn her about what we've found. Would you like us to contact her?" I thought about it. Tessa wouldn't believe me if I told her about Zane's history. She'd think I was lying to get her back, but she might listen to the police. "Yes," I said. Detective Morrison called Tessa that afternoon and asked her to come in for an interview. Tessa called me immediately afterward, panicked and confused. "What did you tell them?" she demanded. "Nothing. This isn't about our marriage, Tessa. It's about Zane." "What about Zane?" "You need to ask him about Marcus Webb, and about Jennifer Morrison and Catherine Hayes. Who are those people? Ask him." She hung up, but I knew the seeds of doubt were planted. That evening, Addie came home from school with news that spread through Portland's teenage network faster than social media. "Dad, everyone's talking about Mom and Zane. Apparently he got arrested today." My phone rang immediately. Detective Morrison. Mr. Carrick, we executed a search warrant on Mr. Marinor's apartment this afternoon. We found additional evidence of fraud, including forged documents and financial records from multiple victims. Was Tessa there? Yes. She was surprised by what we found. An hour later, Tessa showed up at our house. She looked like she'd aged 5 years in 5 hours. Her face was pale, her hands shaking, and she could barely make eye contact with me. "Can I come in?" she asked. We sat in the living room where we'd had thousands of conversations over 11 years of marriage, but this felt different, like we were strangers trying to navigate an impossible situation. "I didn't know," she said finally, "about any of it." "I believe you. Do you? Really?" I studied her face, looking for signs of deception, but all I saw was genuine shock and shame. "Yes. You're not a criminal, Tessa. You're just someone who made bad choices." She started crying then, not the careful tears of someone trying to manipulate a situation, but the ugly, broken sobs of someone whose world had completely collapsed. "He had files on you," she said between sobs. "On me, on the kids, photos, financial records, everything. The police said he's been planning this for months before he even asked me out." "I know." "How long have you known?" "Since yesterday." "Why didn't you warn me? Would you have believed me?" She was quiet for a long time. "Probably not." We talked until almost midnight. Tessa told me about the past few weeks, about how Zane had been pressuring her to file for divorce immediately, about his suggestions for how to maximize her settlement, about his sudden interest in our financial situation. All the red flags she'd missed because she was caught up in the romance of starting over. "I've been such an idiot," she said. "You've been manipulated by someone who's very good at manipulation. That doesn't excuse what I did to you, to us." "No, it doesn't." "Is there any chance?" She started, then stopped. "Any chance of what?" "Of us trying again, starting over." I'd been expecting this question, and I'd already decided on my answer. "No, Tessa, too much has happened." "Because of the affair?" "Because of the lying. The affair was a symptom, not the disease. You spent months planning to leave me while pretending everything was fine. You used our anniversary as a farewell performance. You involved our children in your deception." "I know." "And even now, you're only here because your plan fell apart. If Zane hadn't been arrested, if he'd been the man you thought he was, you'd still be with him." She couldn't argue with that because we both knew it was true. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you figure out how to rebuild your life. Get a lawyer, cooperate with the police investigation, find a place to live that isn't connected to a criminal." "And us?" "We get divorced. Amicably, I hope. We co-parent our children. We try to be civil for their sake. I don't want to lose them. You won't lose them, but you'll have to earn back their trust." Tessa left that night, and I haven't seen her since, except for brief exchanges when she picks up the kids for visits. She's renting a small apartment across town, working as a substitute teacher while she tries to figure out her next move. Zane was charged with fraud, identity theft, and racketeering. His trial is scheduled for next spring. Alyssa's divorce was finalized last month, and she started a support group for women who've been victimized by romance scams. My Facebook post is still up. It's been shared over 3,000 times and has become a cautionary tale about social media deception. People tag their friends in it with comments like, "This is why I don't trust perfect couples online." The kids are doing well, all things considered. Addie got into her first choice college and will start in the fall. Jonah's robotics team won regionals, just like his teacher predicted. They see Tessa every other weekend, and the relationships are slowly healing. As for me, I'm learning to live alone for the first time in over a decade. The house is quieter now, but it's also more honest. No more performances, no more pretending, no more wondering what's real and what's carefully curated for public consumption. I still bring myself coffee every morning. It's not perfect, but it's true. And sometimes that's enough.